Welcome to Gone Your Soul.
I'm Victoria Burnham.
And I'm Lindy Irving, and this is a Rites and Rituals podcast where we've come together.
Hello again.
To talk about ceremony
and ritual
and everyday spirituality. How we can weave spirituality into our everyday lives. So, welcome to our second podcast.
It does sound like such a huge question. How do you weave spirituality into your everyday life? Well, I think we do it unknowingly.
We do.
It's not like we're all out there banging tambourines and, all that.
Speak for yourself.
I do like a tambourine though. Basically it's how we live a spiritual life without, silent retreats and all that kind of stuff. It's just your everyday, weaving it into everyday life.
Which is great, because our topic today is, what does it mean to live a spiritual life? Because we find, we were talking about this before we come on today, that when you talk about spirituality, or you say, when you're trying to explain yourself as a celebrant or ceremonialist, can't even say it, and you say that word spiritual, people will kind of mean, well, what does that mean? Because they don't know, you either fit in that religious camp or what does that actually mean? And it can be difficult to articulate what you mean by living a spiritual life. For me, it means trying to be as authentic as you possibly can while feeling connected to something bigger. If I had to put it in a sentence, that's what I would say.
And that's our new word of the day, authentic.
Authentic. Oh, that's a Lindy word, isn't it? How many times do I say that word when I'm talking about training? And you have to be authentic and integrity. Authentic.
It's true.
Integrity. Yes, no, but what do I mean by authentic? I just mean peeling back the layers that our society, our environment, our parents place on us to just try and come close to who we actually are. Because, we start off as these very, very spiritual beings. If you ever need to see spirituality in its truest form, just look at a toddler. Just look at a baby, a toddler, a wee one. Their eyes just glow. The spirituality is beaming out them. And they find joy and wonder in everything. Absolutely everything.
It is that thing, isn't it, where the basics, like splashing in a puddle, picking up a stick, all those beautiful things that seem to get crushed out of us as we grow older. Why is that?
And they're so fully in the moment. Chilled, and that's what I love. I've got 2 wee grandsons. When you're with them, they are completely in the moment. If you say to them, we'll go to the park later,
what does that mean?
They have no concept of what does that mean. No, we want to go to the park and have fun and play now. And when you watch them, you can give them a bit of paper, a toilet roll, a paper clip, and they will make something from it. They'll be engrossed in their own wee worlds. And then as we get older, and I made a Facebook video about this yesterday because I was in Primark.
One of my favourites.
I went in to buy myself some stuff, never got one thing for me, got £147 worth of clothes for my grandsons. The 2 of them and the new one that's coming. But I noticed it was Primark in Perth. You go upstairs and it's got all the kids' stuff. So all the kids' stuff, and then as you go across the shop, so you can stand at the back of the shop and you can see the full spectrum from the kids to getting, a wee bit older, to teenagers and to adulthood. And the women's stuff are down the stairs. But when you look at all the kids' stuff, it's all very vibrant and colourful and patterns. And it's just so beautiful.
Dinosaurs and princesses.
And monster trucks. But even the things that don't have, that are not covered in superheroes, they're still full of colour. Just all these beautiful colours. And then as the kids get older, it goes to the greys and the blacks and the navies. And then older still, and it becomes even more reserved. And by the time it came to adulthood, there was brown and beige right across. And I was thinking, my God, that's what happens to us in life.
We dim our colour.
We start off so full of colour and so full of joy and wonder for the world. And then we go to school and we're expected to behave in a certain way. And then we're out with our parents, and because we're behaving, joyfully and we're doing what kids do, and we get told to stop that, stop being silly. You're too old for that. Sit and behave. And so we start to think that that's what it means to be a wee person. And then that just, as we get older, we're expected, our young people are expected to go from, I'm big on coming of age and how we are very, very poor in the Western world at acknowledging that transition from being children to being young people going out into the world and trying to make their way. And you can see evidence of the lack of that everywhere, because young people find their own tribes, and it's usually they smoke, they drink, they have sex, they
dress all exactly the same.
Yeah, because they're trying to find their community. And I think if their own community, and we've lost a sense of community to a large extent, if their community would come together and acknowledge, like, this young person's going out into the world and we are hoping they're going to make something, and have some sort of community event where we acknowledge that and we let this young person know that they are valued within their community, and that we know that they have their own talents and their own skills, and we are excited to see how they go out and walk through the world and what they bring back to the community. I think there might be, and I'm maybe simplifying things, but I think we might see less of the things that young people are turning to in our society to try and find their way.
But that, because we're losing sight of the fact that elders, parents, grandparents, people
people of a certain age.
We are not taught to teach the next generation, because we've not really been taught how to we've been taught how to grow up and, as you say, to function as an adult. And adulting is hard. It's even hard now. Every day is hard to adult, because we are not allowed to explore, to have fun, to be joyous. Having fun is to go out and get steaming, right? Nothing wrong with that. Welcome to my weekends. But there's, as you say, there's no holding them as they transition and saying, we'll continue to keep you safe. You can make your own choices, but here's some advice on, some cultures still do, but then it becomes a little bit more commercial. Everything, even the bar mitzvahs, it's all very commercial, but they're beautiful ceremonies. I love the gypsy ceremonies. They're so colourful and vibrant, and what of their coming of age, which is very different to what we would seem as appropriate and right.
Yeah.
But that's their beliefs.
Right for them.
That's what's right for them, and they're so excited about that. I remember, you won't remember, maybe you do. You told me, I remember Jack, who's my eldest, he's now 17. He was turning 13. He was entering into his teens. And I had this conversation with you before we knew each other that well. And I said something about, I don't know, he's turning into a teenager, what's going to happen? He's going to have that Kevin moment, And you said, I really believe that we underestimate our children and we don't value them at this. I was going, oh God, he's going to be a nightmare. It's going to be
angsty teenager.
Yeah, it's going to be just smelly and horrible, and he's going to slam doors. And you said you should honour that, do something for him. And I said, well, what? And I didn't know at that point, going back a few years, too much about ritual. And you said, I remember what I did. I wrote letters, a series of letters to, I think, probably your son or your daughter. I can't remember.
I think I did it for both of them, but I think I was talking about my daughter when I was talking about the series of letters.
So basically what you said was just write a series of letters that they can open up when they, put things on the front.
It was for Becky when she was going to New Zealand, yeah.
So, and they can open them whenever.
Open when.
I'm feeling sad. You feel exactly. Yeah. So you open when I feel sad, open when mum pisses you off,
Yeah.
open when,
Life's getting a bit too much.
And there's just wee things that I wrote in each letter, and I bought all the colour, I love stationery, bought the coloured envelopes, put everything in, sealed them, and I gave them to him privately after his birthday, whatever. And I'm thinking he's too young to grasp the concept of this. He's too, and he still has that box.
Oh.
And I know that he has opened a few of them because every now and then he'll say, "Oh, I did another letter." I have no memory of, because I'm not going to go back in and see what I wrote.
No.
I have no memory of what I wrote, but it was all positive. And I know that he has, like all teenagers, has had his struggles and still will continue to do so. But just to reflect on that, to know that when he turned 13, I acknowledged him as still my child who needed guidance and love, but who was embarking on at a young man, I mean, they're still babies. They'll always be babies to us. But he knew that even if he can't come to me and say, my girlfriend dumped me yesterday, he can pick up a letter and go, "All right, okay."
Yeah.
And that's huge.
It's huge. And to me, we're not doing anything new at Rice and Rituals. We're not, reinventing the wheel. This is something that, and I think this is why so many people are drawn to it, it's so familiar with it to us because it's ingrained in us. There is this intrinsic memory, ancestral memory of ceremony and ritual and connection and these milestones and honouring these transitions in our life. There's something there that's calling from a long time ago. It's calling us back. But you're right, nowadays we don't do it so much. We don't pass on the stories. And we see that a lot when we go to do funeral ceremonies. Yes. And we sit with families, and it's not that they're being put on the spot. They know you're coming. Often they've maybe known that the deceased has been on that end-of-life journey for some time. And we go and sit with them and we say, "Let's talk about this person's life." And how many times have you seen the sheer panic in people's faces because they don't have the stories? They can maybe tell you facts because they go and look up the paperwork.
And it's like a CV of their life.
It's like a CV, born here, and I'll phone Auntie Mildred because she'll tell us what school he went to. And you're thinking, that's not really...
That's not what we're looking for.
Knowing what school they went to is not really that important. What we're looking for is the essence of who they were. We want the stories of their life, and these stories are being lost to time because they're not being recorded. I think they're getting better because you get these apps and things that people can do it.
But I think, exactly. In these little books you can give to Granny.
Yeah.
Fill the book in.
Yeah.
I gave my mum a book ages ago.
Yeah, I got one. My children gave me one.
We get occasionally asked to do a living eulogy, which is when not even somebody in end of life, they've just getting their stuff together. In fact, I'm doing one for my aunt's sister, who, and I've noticed it's mainly people who don't have children. So Auntie had all her affairs in order, we call her Auntie, and had her eulogy written. And I think it's that feeling that she didn't want to burden her family.
Yes, a lot of people do it for that reason, yeah.
No, and it's such a selfless act.
It's so beautiful.
And also they don't have their own children to pass that story on to. So who's going to tell that story? So even
it's so important.
It's so important.
Storytelling. We are all storytellers.
I know. And the fact that you can stand up and tell somebody's story, they may just be the funeral director and one other person there, but you're putting their story out into the universe,
out
and
into
it's
the
heard.
ether, and it's being in my head. It's being
scribed somewhere,
to be held for eternity.
Well, we say that now, don't we? When we do wedding ceremony, that when they sign their wedding schedule, it will go into the records up in Edinburgh for generations to come to go and see and read. So why can't it resonate throughout the universe forever?
There's something beautiful about your life having value across time. Let's face it, we all want to think that our lives matter, and when we pass to the other side that they did matter, don't they? We do. We want to think that we made a difference, even if it's just to one person.
But do you feel that it's dangerous now? Not dangerous, because the stories that people are telling because of all social media. I mean, obviously we're doing social media now. That especially the younger generations, that it's not truthful, the stories that they're presenting, and this causes sort of spiritual, like almost starving them because they're creating
So it becomes
an
more
inauthentic.
more superficial. I think the wonderful thing, and I hadn't thought of that, and I think it's a good point. But I think the wonderful thing is spirituality is something that's deep within all of us. As I already said, we're born as spiritual beings. We're spiritual beings on a human journey, and so we're always trying to be brought back to that. So even when we're disconnected, be it through having parents who are atheists, or you go to school where spirituality is not explored, and I, like you, as a child, as many kids are, were drawn to space and the planets and ghost stories, all this mysticism that exists in the world. I can remember sitting at my window looking at the planets and thinking, what's up there? That's what human beings would have done from the very get-go. They would have sat round a campfire, sat around a fire together, making up stories about that big round thing in the sky, what it meant to their lives. And of course they measured, it was a calendar to them. They would build these, if you look at the different sanding stones, many people think it was a calendar, so that they could work out when the equinoxes and the solstices were going to be, and so they knew when to plant and they knew when to harvest. Absolutely fascinating. I think that's in us all. So I think, but as you get older, I think it starts you're drawn more and more to it. And
so do you think we start off off as these little spiritual sprites of curiosity and energy, and it's just glorious, and then we kind of get pulled into the
human part of the journey.
And then we kind of come out of maybe our working life, kind of start to...
Well, I think often it comes out of periods of struggle.
Yes.
People often find spirituality after they've gone through a period of struggle. So whether that be like me, I went through 2 years of mental illness, and it was really hard, and I was at rock bottom, and it took me another few years to get anywhere back to not what I'd been before, because you don't bounce back. We talk about resilience and bouncing back. We don't bounce back from struggle. We move through struggle, and struggle changes us. And so when I came out the other side, I was a different person, but I realised I was much more in tune with the spiritual aspects of myself. And that really kicked off this secondary journey from being a child, when I was drawn to all this mysterious stuff, and then it being kind of knocked out of me, going to school and my parents and my peers, etc., and then coming back to it so that would be 35 years ago, maybe even a wee bit longer, when I felt that was me coming back to it. And so though the mental illness, I would never wish that on anybody, there were gifts within that, as there always are.
Do you think
always are?
It's almost like you have to be broken down again to sort of have a clearer vision of...
I think you can come to it without having broken down, because I wouldn't like to say, oh, you can't be a spiritual person if you haven't been broken. But I do know from speaking to lots of people and through the work that we do, that it is often a result of being broken down in some way. But that could just be that your life has fallen apart. You've gone through divorce, and you feel as if you're at that rock bottom, and you don't know how you're going to get out of it. But and it's hard to see how you're going to get out of it when you're in it, right? We spoke about that earlier. But through that journey to getting back to being whole again, you can find yourself.
It's so interesting that you say that whole word, because I really feel that. I felt that a couple of years ago, I too was, as we do, we go through shit, and you don't actually, whatever you've been dealing with in the years, it all kind of, sometimes it just all seems to land at once because you're in survival mode for so long. But I remember I'd kind of started diving into a little bit of doing, and it is self-work, you know, it's deep work. You start working on yourself. You think, okay, I can't feel like this for the rest of my life because what is the point? You know, it's a horrible darkness. And I remember starting to put little things, and basically through your guidance as well, because I thought, oh, what, you know, we spoke about starting to put like a little altar together. Now, even that word makes me go, oh, altar?
Love
That's,
an altar.
I know, but at the time I'm thinking, well, that's either high church or witchcraft again. You know, this doesn't seem to be. But I created this beautiful space to be able to sit and started to write and, you know, light a candle, as simple as that, finding that space for a little bit of peace. And it's that I remember so vividly writing just random stuff that comes, and it's a really freeing experience just to start writing, because it's, I'm not saying that sacred is speaking through your pen, but your inner, whatever's inside is starting just to sort of,
it's a release,
you're allowing it to bubble up. And the words that I used, and I felt that my soul had splintered, not shattered. I felt and I visualized.
That's so visually powerful.
Visually, it was like a shard of black, like beautiful, like onyx. Is that a word? Onyx, black, shiny, but it was missing. And I didn't know where to find it. And I would sit there and I thought, that's what's wrong with me. There's a piece of my soul that is, and it's not, it was a splinter. So it was like a painful piece, you know, sharp, it was gone.
God, there's so many levels to that, isn't there?
God, I've gone quite deep, haven't I?
No, but that's a really good thing, because I think it's a really important point to know it, that living a spiritual life doesn't mean to say your life's perfect.
No, absolutely
It doesn't mean
not.
to say it is all kumbaya, you know, and sitting in a circle holding hands.
No.
And it's about knowing that you will struggle. Struggle is a part of life, but it's also about being able to reflect in that struggle and find the gifts in that struggle, because I say there are always gifts to be found, no matter what struggle you're going through. To be able to look for the gifts and to use those gifts to come closer to your, you know, the spiritual being that is you, I think that is hugely important.
It's massive, and I know that it's taken a long time to get to sitting here with you, and it's been an incredible adventure, you know, but to know that I can sit here and then when I still sort of do my gratitude work and will still sit at my altar, you know, which I love, I still visualize my soul as that. Soul sounds heavy, but it is. But I feel I never knew where I found it, but suddenly it was like I was. And it didn't happen overnight. Oh my God.
No.
It didn't, you know, there wasn't a hallelujah moment. You know, I found it.
I'm whole again.
Exactly. It was not like that. I can literally sit here and go, I feel whole again. I feel like I'm intact. And the work, and it's been hard work that I have done with being held by something incredibly immense, my ancestors, spirit. I'm not saying that it's, I'm not saying I'm enlightened. It's not that. I feel like I have found Victoria again.
Which is absolutely wonderful.
It's huge.
What a huge gift. But you're right, it's a lifelong journey. Being in the spiritual path is a lifelong journey. And I embrace that. And I love the struggle, because I know through the struggle I'm coming closer to me.
It's and there is a lot to do with I don't know much about psychology and things like that.
You're looking at me as if you think I do. I'd studied at university, but that doesn't mean to
You've
say
got
I
a
know
degree in
loads
it.
about it.
I'm like that.
That was a week. Well, 2011, I finished university. I can't remember what I was reading last week.
But even all of that work that professionals do, it, to me, feels almost like a kind of somebody's holding you through a sort of spiritual journey.
Yes, absolutely, always. And actually, what I said there, I should come back to. It was a long time ago and I don't remember it. And I remember one of my spiritual tutors when I was on that interfaith journey, and you get lots of stuff you have to read. You have to read different texts, religious texts and things. And I said to him, look, I'm a woman of a certain age. I have menopausal memory. So I can read a book and the next day if you ask me, I couldn't tell you what that book was about. And I said, and it's stressing me because I feel that I'm not retaining that information. And so I'm questioning whether I should be on this course. And I remember he said the most beautiful thing, and this is no verbatim, but he said, whenever we read anything, whenever we hear something, so we're listening to a podcast, we're watching something, it goes in and it lands like silt somewhere, so that when the time comes and you need it, it will bubble up. And I absolutely love that because it's a lovely thing, but it's also something to be very cautious about, because yes, if you are feeding your mind with things that serve you, so positive things, so funny things that are going to lift you and are going to support you in this journey you want to be on, that's brilliant because it's going in there and it's landing, and hopefully it's going to be there when you need it. If you're filling your mind with shite, if you're filling your mind with negative chat, if you're watching true crime every night, and I do love a wee bit of true crime. I'm not going to say, it's showing women are much more drawn to true crime. But if that's what you're feeding yourself all the time, then you have to know that's going in there and it's landing like silt. And that's going to come bubbling up. But it's going to come bubbling up in a way that's going to make us feel anxious and worried and stressed and no worthy. But we don't recognise that, so we just think, why is life not working for me? Why do I feel anxious all the time? You have to, and I did this with somebody the other day. I had a chat with somebody. It wasn't in a work setting, but it was somebody talking about their work and how their work's not working for them. But one of the things I do, because in a past life I was a life coach.
Many lives.
Yeah, that comes into, I have had many lives. But the life coach in me was listening to the language that she was using, when she was talking about herself. And it was things like, it's a struggle and I feel stifled and it just doesn't work. If this is the language that you're using over and over with yourself, then is it any shock that your life's not working for you? We all should be very aware of the language that we're using with ourselves, and we should be gentle. And I'm always saying to my daughter when she was growing up particularly, be gentle with yourself. Think about the language you're using, and if it's not supportive language, if it's not the kind of language you would use if you were talking to your daughter or to a close friend, then stop using it in yourself. Find a way of changing it. And that's challenging in itself. But because I used the word struggle earlier, I mean, think of that struggle. I'm all tied up and I can't get out, and life can feel like that at times. It absolutely can. But it's how we talk to ourselves and how we respond to what's happening to us that makes the difference.
I mean, that's exactly what we do, though, isn't it? We hold other people up, the people that we love in our lives, our friends and family, and we'll say nice things to them. But for some reason, we can't seem to turn that on ourselves. It's almost like giving them counsel when you should really be holding a mirror up and going, I remember I had a drama teacher, and he's passed now, Brian Asprey. He was a wonderful man. And I remember him getting us to stand up and look in the mirror and repeat to ourselves that we loved.
I love you.
I love you. it's possibly one of the hardest
It's
things.
so difficult for people.
Why can't we just
Well,
like
I
who we
can.
are?
I can stand in the mirror and say I love you and mean it. But that's through all the work I've done in myself. I don't speak negatively to myself, and I'm not saying that as I'm better than anybody. But I'm very aware of the language that I use with myself. And we said this earlier. I said to you, sacred is always whispering in your ear.
That's what I was going to say. Doesn't it feel wonderful that actually when we stop and we just have that moment where, if you are, if you're lucky to have the time just to sit and maybe it's a form of meditation or just listen to that voice, that it's okay to like yourself, to be everybody else sees you as the good person. So why can't we? So being held by something greater is a wonderful thing.
It's just being able to discern between the voice of the sacred or the universe or God or whatever you want to call it, and that human voice, that voice that's coming from your ego, that is the one that puts you down. Who do you think you are?
That's exactly.
You can't do that.
But that's quite a Scottish thing. I think that's quite a Scottish thing where we
that we're down on ourselves.
That we're down on ourselves, and we don't necessarily look to big up other people.
Tall poppy syndrome.
What's that mean?
Just means tall poppy syndrome. Just means don't get too above yourself.
Why is that?
Because we're going to cut you down. I think that is something that I think that is something that does exist in Scotland. Maybe it exists everywhere.
Yeah,
we'll let you get to a certain point of success, but don't get too above yourself, or we're going to drag you down. But we don't think like that.
No.
We're very much supporters of other people and people trying to better themselves and better their lives, and because by doing that it improves your life. If you're sitting looking negatively at other people and saying, who does she think she is? And particularly in the celebrant world, you see a lot of people comparing themselves to others. And I always say to people, it's a waste of time comparing yourself to somebody else, because you will always find yourself wanting. You'll always find something that they're doing better than you, or they look better than you, or they're younger than you, or they sound as if they write better than you. Just be yourself. Be the best version of yourself that you can be, and always be trying to improve in yourself, which is something that we very much promote in Rites and Rituals. But don't compare yourself to others. Just be yourself, go out and do what you love, and you'll find that people will be drawn to that. That's how you manifest.
Yeah.
You manifest by just being who you are and just drawing those people who are connected to that to you.
And that was a huge part of the work that we've done with the celebrant ceremonialists that we've been working with, is that your classic line is, you're
Get
not
out your
Lindy.
own way.
You're not Lindy.
Don't try and be me.
So it's finding your own, and it's not necessarily style, it's basically having confidence in you. Because we could all be a carbon copy of the person who trains us in life. If you're at law school, or if you're at, Brownies or whatever, you can copy people.
It's very easy to copy, but even when you try, I remember a friend of mine that had gone to see Tony Robbins, the life coach, and he's saying to me, have you ever been? And I said, no, I tend not to go and watch other people because I don't want to come out and be like them. And he said, well, it was really interesting because I went along, he went with a friend, and before Tony Robbins comes on, as you would imagine, they've got all the music on and they're trying to hype everybody up. And they were kind of doing that. And he said, I was just thinking, yeah, I know exactly what you're doing. And he said, 10 minutes after Tony Robbins came out, I was on my chair going, Tony. He said, and then I found myself in the days and weeks after being a carbon copy of Tony Robbins.
I want that life.
There's only one Tony Robbins, and I don't mean that as in he's better than anybody else. There's only one you, there's only one me, and that's good enough. That's good enough. So why waste time trying to be like somebody else?
Or comparing yourself
to somebody else when you could just be trying to be the best you that you can possibly be. And that's good enough. And I think these are all things that are part of living a spiritual life. They might not look like it on the surface, but when you dive into them a wee bit, these are all parts these things are all part of living a spiritual life. And this idea that the sacred's always whispering in my ear.
Got your back.
Got your back. And if I do find myself going, what the hell was that, Linda? Would you say that for? She'd be the one that would say, and I say she, but, you know, it's genderless, it's formless, genderless. She'd be the one that would say, what are you talking about? You go gentle on yourself. You're trying your best. You're trying your best, and that's good enough. So she is always in my corner.
Mm-hmm. And there is that lovely feeling, isn't there, that it's something that I feel now that I never felt before. It's that feeling that, God, I keep going back to my drama school days.
But that's okay.
Those exercises, you know, the trust exercises, you know, the fallback exercises. Or maybe we could do a bit of that, actually. That'd be quite fun.
A big mattress.
Exactly. And it's that feeling that the amount of work that we're doing and building up your own sort of spirituality and trying to live a good life, but knowing that if I fall back, I will be held.
You'll be caught. Yeah.
I'll be caught.
Yeah, yeah.
And that gives, I think, everybody that who is in this kind of world feels that just little bit of confidence, that bit of, as you say, whether you belong to the Christian church or Buddhism or whatever, it's that feeling that if something goes, you're all right. We've got you.
Yeah. But you have to do your part in that. It's a two-way street. So you can't be like, oh, my life's not working. Universe, my life's not working. Like, can you make it better for me? And then just go on living your life the way you were. You have to be invested in your own growth and your own healing, and you have to. So a big part about living a spiritual life is about taking the time to sit down at your altar.
Yes.
And be just at one with the God of your understanding, whatever that might be. Light a candle and just be present with the sacred, and have space for gratitude. Hugely important. It's the first thing I do. Go through the things I'm grateful for in my life, of which there are many, many things. I could be there for a week talking about all the things I'm grateful for. But also, if there's difficulties in your life, just spending time voicing those. Or you could be meditating with the sacred. Because
it's like what you said, it's just because we're living a spiritual life doesn't mean that we don't have shit days, because every day is, you know, it's tough. And it doesn't mean that it's all perfect. We're not going to win the lottery. We're not going to, you know, it'd be nice if you win the lottery. But
it wouldn't solve everything, right? If you're a miserable git and you win the lottery, you're probably still going to be a miserable git. And miserable git with money, but...
Yeah, exactly. Have a nice car. So I go back to that time that I sat with that piece missing. And I remember thinking, this has got to... But it's taken how many years to actually go... And I know that just because I'm feeling all right now, it's not a quick fix.
No.
This is something, it is self-work, and it's knowing that we are being held by something greater, but the work you have to put in.
Yeah, and it's 24/7. So it's not that you just... So we talk about spiritual practice, and that just means the practice that you do to try and connect with the sacred. And some people, I mean, I try and do that all the time, whether I'm driving or when you're in ceremony, you very much feel it. You feel that deep connection. But if I'm driving, when I'm with my grandsons, oh my goodness, I feel so connected to spirit when I'm with my grandsons. But it's also about taking the time to sit down at your altar, or sitting down with your journal, or sitting down to meditate. I remember reading a story, and it was about the Dalai Lama, and somebody saying to him, do you have to actually take time to sit down and meditate? Can you not just live a life that's spiritual? So you're thinking about it in your everyday. And the Dalai Lama said, well, yes, that's important, but sometimes it's also important to just sit. And I think that's really true. Sometimes it is just, when I do it every day. It's built into my spiritual practice. I sit down in front of my wee altar that I've created, and a wee altar is just... it's something that you put together that has different symbols on it that you connect with. It can have anything on it at all. But it's the place where you go to feel as close to the sacred as you can be. And so I'll sit with my altar, and as I say, I'll practice gratitude there. And then when I go to my bed at night, I lie in my bed, and the last thing I do before I go to sleep, after I've read or listened to my audiobooks or whatever, is I will say 3 things that I'm grateful for that day. So gratitude, huge part of my spiritual practice. But also my life in general and things that are going on with my life, just to chat through those. I meditate at night, whereas in the morning it's much more of a kind of active spiritual practice. So I think those are important, because the more you do those, then the more, as you're walking through life and you're meeting with people and you're doing things like this, that the spiritual aspects of it become apparent to you. They become visible to you. And you see the sacred in everything.
And as a ceremonialist, as a celebrant working, if you haven't got that space within yourself, then it's very difficult. I'm not saying you can't do it, but to go into, mainly with funeral work, I suppose, because there is a different level of that you're working with. As a joyous couple, for example, that's one thing. There's excitement and, all sorts of party elements that, they're all into. But if you don't have the grounding and the space to go in and hold your families, and then a room full of people with, there's all different. I love to think that the majority of the work we do in our funeral work is celebrating people's lives. But we know that it's not as easy as that. You could be sitting with a family who've lost their son through, some a cancer
baby,
or an accident or a drug overdose or something. So there's a lot of grief that you're dealing with. If you don't have the space to go in and hold them through that, and it's not you go in and you don't preach or anything. It's not that's not the spiritual journey that we as rites and rituals do. No. It's about allowing them and holding them and making them feel safe, and maybe giving them that, even when they may not be reaching out for it. They don't know what they need. They're so lost. But even quietly, we can just hold them.
And I think that's nice, because that brings us back to, we were talking before on our last podcast about the difference between a celebrant and a ceremonialist. And whereas we think about a celebrant as who's somebody who just gets up and they lead a ceremony, ceremonialist, a wee bit deeper, somebody who is holding space. Now, I'm sure there's many celebrants out there who say it, but I hold space, and that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But in my head, ceremonialist, holding space, and that's a phrase that we use often. We use it in the training, and sometimes people are like, I don't even know what that means, and that's fine. But we need to explore that to get to a point where you can feel that you're holding space. You're very comfortable with the idea of what holding space is, so that you can go out there and you can hold space for people wherever they're at. We hold space in a one-to-one. We're holding space for each other just now. We're holding space for people who might be watching. We hold space, of course, in ceremony. We're always holding space. So we hold space for my grandchildren. We hold space, for your husband, but your partner. So we're always holding space, and it's an integral part. But you're absolutely right. If we don't have that space within ourselves for the sacred and what that means and what it is we're actually holding, then how can we go out and hold space for others?
And the beauty of the community that we're building with rites and rituals is the fact that we don't come away and feel, you can come away and feel absolutely drawn and exhausted and drained and emotional. By building that, going back to what we're saying, we've lost those communities. Back in the dark ages, we would sit, if we had a rubbish day or holding people, somebody had died, the whole community would come together. Where we're building a community where we can then come away from that feeling, take it with you, but then share it amongst people who will hold you, because we need held through everything as well. And if I can pick up the phone or do Zoom chat with other rites and ritual ceremonials who are there not to tell me what to do, but just to listen,
to hold space. Yeah, and we do that at Rites and Rituals. We have, using modern technology, we have a WhatsApp group, but the deal is anybody can come on and say, is there anybody available? And we can get on and we can just hold that space for each other and make sure that that person's heard, whether it's got something to do with ceremony or not. That's what being part of a community is about. It's not just about the ceremonies that we do, it's about us as a community.
And I did feel that before, as working as an independent celebrant, you didn't know the emotions that you would feel sometimes. You just come away and you'd think, oh, well, I've got to go home now and cook tea for the kids. So there was no space to sort of go, oh God, there's a couple of people and your friends, they're all on their own journey, and I've got wonderful friends who I know they're on a spiritual journey, they just don't know it.
We're all on a spiritual journey.
Exactly. But to have people who can go, okay, I hear you, is huge.
Yeah. And to just sit with that, not to try and make it better for you, not to problem solve, not to listen with the intention of answering back, just to be listening. And then maybe saying, what can I do? Is there anything you need from me? That's holding space in the best of ways. And that's a big part of living a spiritual life. Okay, that's us come to the end of our second podcast. It seems to be a natural place to stop.
Absolutely.
Once again, thanks to Victoria for being here with me.
Thanks to Lindy.
Thank you to you for listening. If there are any topics that you would be interested in hearing or any comments or anything, you can find us on YouTube.
Yes.
Rites and Rituals Scotland. You can find us on Facebook. Rites and Rituals Scotland, would you believe it? You can find us on Insta. And if you want to follow us, we have a website, ritesandrituals.co.uk. There's no Scotland in there, just ritesandrituals.co.uk. You can sign up to be part of our community, and then you find out about our gatherings. We have a monthly online gathering where we come on and we do this, but on Zoom with a larger group of people, just talk through different aspects of spirituality and ceremony and ritual.
Yes, so you don't have to be you don't have to want to be a celebrant or a ceremonialist to be part of our community. And we're looking at doing some wonderful day retreats in the future where we can actually all get together and explore the sacred together. And so there's lots of things bubbling away, but as Lindy said, any ideas or questions or anything that you can put forward would be really most welcome.
Most welcome. Okay. Thanks for listening. See you on the next one.
Bye.